To be able to take something in a moment, you know, something like a belt or something like a medal or something like a competition, and be able to say, I did this exact thing, and check it and say, like, I did that.
A lot of people would have lost motivation in that time. So what kept you motivated through the injuries, through the time off that you took, through a pandemic, to still have that drive to want to compete?
It gives you a moment, a pat on the back. It gives you the motivation. It gives you that power to keep pushing through new challenges.
All right, as you guys can see, because you guys can read, we're here with John. Words, I don't think we do that, but now we're gonna test Naynay's editing skills because now we got to put something up there, right there.
And over there.
John, right there, or this way.
Too.
Watching you. John's been with us forever. He's been through, I think, all the evolutions that we've been through here. So just let's start off by just saying, what led you to start training?
I would say, so I've always been interested in doing MMA. I was a big fan.
What year did you actually start?
I started, what year is this? We're in 2021, I think like 2016.
2016.
Yeah, I think 2016. So I mean, I shopped around and everything. I was one of those people that I am a type of person who thinks about doing something, and there's this concept in French cooking called mise en planche. It's basically you chop everything. So if you're making a lasagna, you'll put the noodles on the side, sauce on the side, you'll measure out all the seasoning, chop up all your meat and vegetables before you start cooking anything. So I've always been like that. When I was a kid, I loved Connects. I had thousands and thousands of them, and I would just pour them on the
Showing your
ground.
age, I don't even know if those things exist anymore.
Well, they're like Legos. I know you know what Legos are. So I would just pour them all out whenever I went to build, and I would meticulously take each piece and put them in a pile with like pieces before I would build anything. So it's the same thing with like mixed martial arts. It took me a while to sort of structure my life in a way where I felt comfortable coming to train, but I always saw myself doing it because I see mixed martial art as physical chess. You know, the counters and the movements and the knowledge, and one person does one thing and then there's another way to counter that and overcome it. I have a very strategic mindset. You know, that's why I love board games. So for me, MMA was that thing that combined that strategy with athleticism. You know, I love sports. I've done volleyball, bowling, basketball, football, track, cross country, like the whole 9 yards. So it just combined both those worlds together. And I'm happy I found a place like this because I think you guys do a really good job with fundamentals. Like I've always appreciated that. That's one of the things that had me coming back multiple times, is that I felt like being in this gym, I would have a solid foundation.
That's what we were talking about in the last week's podcast. Obviously, I started at Victory, and that's where you started too. You know, and you're one of the very few people I think that are still here that started when we were Victory. You know, so what was that like for you going from Victory and then all the changes that we made, and what was going through your mind? Because like for me on the instructor side, the first time we switched the name, I was like, all right, you know, we all know what happens. I was like, all right, this is obviously the path that we need to go to. But then once we did it a second time, I was like, we're just losing all our credibility now. You know, so what was kind of going through your head when you heard that we were changing the name, and then when we were changing it again, what just kept you here? Because for me, like, having people like you that stuck in, when we were Victory, if you started in 2016, I was already teaching, you know, but obviously I wasn't with the knowledge or the capability or the experience that I had then that I have now. So I'm really appreciative of those that started then and have stuck it out, and especially with your story that, you know, life gets in the way and sometimes you got to take some time off, but you always find your way back. So how'd you feel during the changes, and what kept you coming back to here specifically?
So, like I mentioned before, like honestly, what kept me coming back was you and Collar, to be honest. Just the relationship with you all, and also again the fundamentals. Like even when you being a new coach, I didn't know you were a new coach when we were at Victory, but I prefer, and with being with Victory, I experienced some of the other gyms, and not to knock on them or anything, but I definitely liked that this was my home gym within the context of Victory. The one thing, and I'll be honest with you, the first change into that hit for fit, it did kind of made me hesitant during that time, because I feel like the gym sort of moved more towards a workout fitness place rather than a fight gym. Because my goal was always to get into the cage, and my goal still is to get into the cage. And despite being older, I'm still very much looking forward to doing that. But I knew that the fundamentals wouldn't be enough. Iron sharpens iron. And so I need to be in a gym with other partners who can train well, who can push me to be my best. And so I appreciated that third iteration, that Warrior Evolution. And I was happy to see that when I came back, the gym was more of a fight gym. We had at least 3 or 4 fighters who were out there on a regular basis, actually competing on a regular basis, regular training camps. And then the in-house that we did last year, definitely let me know that the gym is moving and continuing to move in that direction. So I'm happy that I stuck here. I really, again, enjoy, it's a family atmosphere. You're my coach, but you're like my little brother. So and we're all family here. Carla, Naynay, you all are like my family, so I enjoy being back.
That's what we try to, from the very beginning, build. And you might remember towards the end of the Victory days that started fading. And even within the gyms, when I first started, all the gyms were united. If someone from Orland Park was fighting, all the gyms were at that fight. And then over the years that kind of died out, because every gym, every Victory kind of just started doing their own thing, and then they started teaching different curriculums and stuff. And that's what kind of started with all the problems that we had with Victory. And then when we switched, and my wonderful business partner at the time, we did want to go to that fitness route. And that's why we had the problems that we had there, because I was always hell-bent on keeping that fighting atmosphere, because that's why I started. I started because I wanted to fight, and then I wanted to start teaching because like you said, the fundamentals were everything. I was a little guy. I wasn't going to outpower anybody, so I had to really learn the technical side of the sport. So once we started shifting away from that, I was like, and then I noticed guys like you started disappearing. I was like, we gotta change this. We gotta come back. And then with the name, it was like, we're not going to strike fear into the hearts of our opponents with this name. So that's when I think that was the longest that you were away, right? Was that year?
Yeah. No, it ended up being 2 years, but definitely I was away for a larger chunk during that. And then once I took over completely and we started with Warrior Evolution, I think we rushed it, because when we left Victory, Naynay was still in a training camp, and then we didn't know what was going on. We were prepared to show up to fight night dressed in all black and being an independent, fighting independently, because we didn't know if we were going to be able to use the name. We didn't know if we were going to have our own name at that point, so we had no idea what was going on. And it was 3 days before her fight that we got word that we were no longer Victory, and then we had the name already. It wasn't my choice, but we went out there and we tweaked it a little bit for the fight, because we just did Hit MMA when she fought, but we went right into it. And I felt like I was just thrown into the deep end of the pool, because I went through all that with Victory, and now I'm a co-owner of a gym with a brand new name, and one of the first times that I'm coaching by myself after just 3 days, So it was scary. Naynay did great. She won that fight, and that was obviously a good morale booster. And then I had the experiences that I had that year with fighters, and then Warrior Evolution, when we started that, we officially launched Warrior in January of 2019, and then Leo was our first fighter under that banner. Right. And that was in May, so I had 5 months to settle in as full owner, now head coach, and
I don't know if you remember it, but Leo's first opponent was a Victory guy. Yeah, you know, so it was kind of full circle, and that's why I was like, should we take this fight? The guy's bigger, the guy's got more experience, but it's like, this is gonna be the ultimate test to see what this gym's gonna be about, and you know, Leo brings home the win, you know, and just learning. Victory had like a very cookie cutter style of coaching the fighters. You know, I remember being on a 2-hour call with Dion Ricardo about how he laid out the entire training camp. And this is how the training camp was gonna be for every fighter. I was like, Leo and Aaron are two entirely different people.
No, they absolutely are.
and those were the guys that kind of set the foundation for the competition team for Warrior Evolution. You know, I can't train Leo the same way I train Aaron and vice versa.
Right.
And we tried that, and it was weird. Like, they still did great because of the training that they have, that they were able to make the adjustments that we needed. You know, and then once Mac came in, you know, Mac's an old school Victory guy too, and taking what worked with Victory and kind of evolving it to the style that I think that everybody deserves their own training camp. You know, Leo's, you got to be in his face to wake him up. Aaron already knows. Aaron's so technical. Right. You just got to kind of talk to him and remind him of his options. Right. Leo needs to be told, do this, do this, do this. You know, so during that experience and with everything, and you just had your first grappling tournament, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, but all that kind of led to the confidence. I always lacked confidence as a coach because I didn't have the competition experience that I wanted, because I kind of got thrusted into coaching so quickly. Mm-hmm. You know, so to having you guys as someone that have these years experience, and I know you and I had the discussion that is like 2016, 5 years, but like with the time off, it's like it were actually 2 years and stuff, you know, but the mindset started building 5 years ago. And that's experience, at least with, maybe not the on the mat training, but the training in here, the one that makes a huge difference. The newer guys need mindsets like that to help them grow. You might still be in the learning stages that you feel that you are, and we're all still learning, but you're gonna help those newer guys get over those humps that they feel like they wanna quit, you know, because you never did. You know, you understand the difficulty, you understand injuries, because we've been through all that, and you keep coming back, you know. So once you came back, and I was shocked to see you, and you came back full force. You came in, I don't even think you told me that you were coming. Yeah, I showed up one day and I was like, it's this guy, you know, and you signed up right away, you got the gear, and you started training full force, and you told me your goals haven't changed, you still wanted to compete, you know. So, and what are we, 2 weeks out now, 3 weeks away? Or from?
Yeah, 2 weeks, I think.
From your first,
like 2 weeks.
From your first competition. So talk us through that part of what kept that drive, because, you know, starting in 2016 to now having your first competition in the sport in 2021, a lot of people would have lost motivation in that time. So what kept you motivated through the injuries, through the time off that you took, through a pandemic, to still have that drive to want to compete?
Right. I would say, you know what that is, right? If you guys can hear that, that's so this is perfect. This is perfect, because I would say one of the core philosophies for myself is process is power, right? I run my life and I achieve most things through processes. Like, once I come up with a system, just like we were talking about before, the mise en place, once I come up with a system, I have so much confidence in that system that I just follow it until we get to where we set out to get to. And I think this is a perfect example of it. Like, once I got to that place in 2016, and in my mind I was just like, I'm going to fight in the cage. Yeah. You know, we're gonna get some fights in, we're gonna do it, we're gonna do whatever we need to do, and we're gonna understand that we're gonna get there through baby steps. We're gonna find a process, a system that works, and we're just gonna keep following that system until we get to where we wanna get to. And for me, and honestly, I think I think it's a natural thing as you grow through life. Like, it's maturity too. Yeah. You know, I'm one of the older guys here, you know, and I think sometimes when we're younger, we think we're Superman and we're invincible, and so we depend a lot more on just like brute strength or just talent and natural ability. And as we get older, we finally get to a point where we understand that, oh, okay, we are human, and we are going to slip up, we are going to get injured, we are going to make mistakes. Things aren't going to be perfect, and things don't have to be perfect in order for me to actually make progress and achieve my goals. And I think it just took me a while to get there, and once I got there, I understood that. And it was like, it doesn't matter, you know, how old I am, it doesn't matter how long it's taken me to get here. I'm gonna achieve this goal through just consistent, repetitive practice. You know, practicing the right way. Process is power. And you know, I apply that to anything in my life, and I had to learn that, I guess, the hard way. You know, personally in my life, I struggled with decades of depression, like decades of it. And in the process of learning how to come out of that low space or come out of that negativity, I learned that like meditation and mindfulness and mindful thinking and sleep patterns, like all these processes, they're very powerful in my life. I tell you the two things that I do in the morning. First thing I do, I get up, I get out of bed, I go on my back porch for 5 minutes and just take in the sun, just to tell my body to wake up. Second thing I do, I go back in my room and fix my bed. And from there, that's my day. Those two things. As long as I do those two things, I'm good to go. I start off, and it's that routine. It's kind of like, I know a lot of athletes are superstitious. Yeah. You know, because it's that routine that gets them prepared for the game. A lot of athletes have to rub this lucky sock, or, you know, they have to shower and turn to the left, you know, because it just gets them in that mindset of like, I'm good to go. You know, I do this every single time. That's why you shoot those free throws the same way every single time, because all that pressure and you're in the game, you step to that line, I know how to do this, you know? So it's the same thing I've applied to my life. You know, process is power. As long as I'm attacking these systems with vigor, then I tend to make the progress towards my goals.
And the first one was the grappling tournament.
Yes.
And so you were one of the 10 guys that we had compete that tournament, which was the most that I've ever dealt with, and I was very happy that Aaron was there. I was very happy that Mac was there and Raul were there, because the grappling tournaments in the past, even when the last one we did before you guys, it was just 2 guys. And I was still running back and forth, even though it was just 2 guys, but they were still going at the exact same time. You know, so the idea that 10 of you were gonna go in there was already giving me anxiety. I get very anxious on days of competitions. Naynay follows me around on those days, and she'll tell you, the last one, when I knew it was just me and a bunch of guys, we just bought a bottle of whiskey and we kept it in the car just in case. Break in case of emergency kind of thing. You know, so when there was 10 of you, I was like, God, I hope Aaron's gonna be there, I hope Matt can be there. You know, and everything just flowed. And I think that even when you got there, like we were all together. You know, we were in the corner, we all got there, we're in the corner, we had to wait forever because the thing was so unorganized, but we waited together. And then once everything was going in motion, because of the type of training that we have, in my opinion, and you can tell me your side of it, but what ended up happening is that some of you guys were on this side of the mats, and then some of you guys were on that side of the mats. And what ended up happening was there were 2 coaches here, 2 coaches there, and we kind of just stuck to our sides. Yeah. And we were running back and forth, and that was in a game plan. Like, I met with Mac and Raul after. I was like, good job, that worked. You know, because the 10 people competing, and a lot of you guys were it was your first competition. You know, so nerves kick in, and like your first experience grappling somebody that's actually trying to hurt you. You know, there's a sense of training. We set a good pace. We set a decent pace depending on who you're going with, but no one's gonna try to rip your arm up. Right. Here, it's a totally different field. It's a totally different environment once you're there. Right. And a lot of you were doing your first tournament. Right. You were one of the 5 people that brought back a medal. For your first tournament, you come back with a 2nd place medal. Mm-hmm. So what was going through your mind before? I know we talked about it a little bit. It was a normal day for you. You know, so what was going through your mind before the tournament, during the tournament, and then what did it feel like to actually walk out your first tournament with a medal?
So yeah, we definitely talked about it, and it ties into what I just talked about athletes being superstitious. Process is power. It literally was a regular day for me. I woke up, I went on the back porch, I looked at the sun, I came back in, I fixed my bed, and then I did so usually on Saturday we have our morning grappling. So I have to do my workout, and again, process is power. Before we train, I'm always in here like 30 minutes beforehand, stretching and working the bag. So I do that at home on Saturdays, and I also do an extra like hip flexor like workout because of the grappling. Yeah. So I did that. I went in the kitchen, I cooked breakfast like normal, I washed dishes like normal. My friends were there, we chit-chatted for a little bit, and I got in the car, I left before them, got to the tournament. Funny story, my first round opponent, as I was pulling into a parking spot, he pulled around me and was like, hey, are you going to the tournament? I'm like, yeah. He's like, how do you get there? Because I was parked on the street. I was like, the entrance is around there. He's like, oh, thanks. And he pulls off and he parks. And I'm just walking, casually walking. It's like 1 o'clock. I was scheduled for like 3:30 for my match. And he comes zooming past me. I'm like, hey, where are you going? He's like, my match is starting right now. I'm like, what weight are you? He's like, 185. I'm like, what? And so then I pull up the phone, because it's my weight. I pull up the phone, it says, it's like 130 and it's like 120. And I'm walking through the door. I'm like, no! But because this is the first match, like I have no idea that these things can like fluctuate up and down. So I'm like, no, I didn't get a chance to stretch. This is not gonna work. So that's the negative side of process is power, because I lean a lot into my process, and so if it doesn't, if something gets shook, it's like, it kind of rattles me a little bit. But get there, and I think I touched bases with you, and I'm just like, yo, the thing says one thing, you're like, don't pay attention to that. I'm like, are you sure? Yeah, don't worry about it. Turns out I didn't have the match until like 5 o'clock. So
LaFell did the same thing. Like, we're all chilling. He's like, I gotta go. I was like, shit, all right, let's go. What mat are you on? He's like, I don't know. I was like, well, where did they call you? They haven't called me, but it says right here I'm on right now. I was like, go sit down.
Yeah. No, that's the truth.
My heart can't handle this right now. Don't do that again. Listen for your name, listen for your mat, and then we'll handle it from there. Because usually they're not that bad. There's fluctuation like that, but a 4-hour fluctuation is ridiculous. It messes up with, like you said, with because that's nothing to joke. Like, that's the problem with being in a process. But as athletes, you guys got to warm up. You guys got to warm up properly to not get hurt, let alone get in the right mindset. But to prevent injury, you guys have to stretch and be warm by the time you're there. And then even when they call you at the table, you might be waiting around another 15 minutes before your match actually starts.
Yeah, because they're gathering everybody for the division and stuff. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So so I got there, and you let me know that, and so in my mind, I'm okay. If this fluctuates so much, maybe I should just go ahead and stretch. So I went ahead and stretched again. I was all sweaty, good to go, and I figured I brought my jump rope with me, so I figured in between every 20 minutes or so, I can just jump just to keep the blood flowing or whatever. And it was right before my match, while I was there, I really enjoyed it. Just like walking around, watching people, watching other teammates, congratulating them, just giving pointers, seeing things, just hearing information. Just new information from other sources that you don't interact with on a regular basis. Like, that was really fun. And then right before my match, again, because I had the idea of this is just a regular day, like getting on the mat, it did, after my first match, it did surprise me just how quick you go from like calling your name on the mat, judges like, ready, and it's just like, go. There's no like, can I get a second to think? Like, what am I gonna do? Like, what's my plan of attack? It's just like, go, and you're just in there. And it's, right after the match, it's amazing that was 5 minutes. Cause it just, like, I looked back at my film and stuff, and in my mind while the match was going, I thought we were moving constantly all over the place, and no, we were like really in one spot for a good like 20 seconds, and then there was a transition, and then it was hand fighting for like 30 seconds. It did not seem that way when it was happening. Like, I wasn't like tired or anything, but it just, it's just, boom, it was done. It was like start and go, done. And I don't know, it was crazy. And then after the match, I would say that I was just pumped. Because unfortunately, there were only like 2 people I went against. And originally there were supposed to be 4 people in the division. So 2 people didn't show up. And like, I just wanted to keep going. Because that taste of, I'm very competitive, and I didn't talk about it before, but track was a big thing for me. because it's one of those events it's a team sport, but it's also a very individual sport. Like when you're out there and you're running, if it's not a relay, it's you. Like there's no excuse. Like you're on the track, you can't say, oh man, you know, if you would have got out of the way, I would have been able to do this. Like no, it's your body against your mind. Yeah. And you're out there on that track. And I feel the same way about MMA. It's your body and your mind, and you're in that cage or on that mat against somebody else's body and somebody else's mind. And that's like the prime version of competition for me. And so I won my first one, I lost my second one. I was just ready to go again. I was ready to immediately take what I learned from my loss and apply it. And I also felt like I could have beat my second opponent. Like he's a jiu-jitsu guy, and he definitely had more skill than me, but I felt like I had more cardio, and I had enough knowledge that once I pushed him just a little bit more, I would have put myself in a better position and possibly beat him. Yeah. And so like we got stood up at like 30 seconds, and I felt like if that stand-up would have happened at like with 1 minute left, I might have been able to just push him to the edge of exhaustion and then that would have gave me a little bit of advantage over his technique to beat him out. Yeah. So like after the match, I was just super excited, man. Yo, cause I was cutting weight. So again, process is power. I've been intermittent fasting. I've been, checking my diet and everything. And I've been on a pescatarian binge for a while as part of that. And as soon as we got out of there, went to Lynn's, got some barbecue tips, like got some links, got a couple bottles, like, yo, I was having a good time after that. And again, I mentioned I love board games, so my friends were over there, we were like playing one of my favorite board games. I was sipping and I had rib tips. I was the happiest person in the world, like afterward. It didn't matter, even if I didn't place, like I would have just been ecstatic just because I finally got over that initial hump, did it, and it definitely wasn't as bad as I thought it was gonna be. Yeah. That questioning, like, am I ready, am I ready, am I ready? Like I was definitely ready, and I'm looking forward to the next one. I'm nothing but excited for the next one.
And that's the biggest thing, like as a coach, is trying to balance that, because I'm a perfectionist with myself and a perfectionist with all of you guys, and you went through the training that we had with Victory. It was technique and it was conditioning. And I always tell everyone before the grappling tournaments, and it's what I had to tell Chewy too, because he had a rough start. And I was like, you have more cardio and you're more explosive than everybody in your division. Use it.
Right.
Switched everything around, and he was just dragging people to the point where they had no idea what they were doing. And that's the thing, and that's why we push that conditioning, because you can have all the technique in the world. If you don't have the conditioning to do it, right, what's the point of having that technique? Right. And vice versa. You can have the best conditioning in the world and not know any technique. Well, what's the point? Exactly.
It's funny you say that, because something stuck in my mind that Aaron said while he was coaching somebody else. I was sitting on the sideline. He said, weaponize your cardio. Yeah. And literally as I was rolling, that phrase was going through my head, weaponize your cardio. It's like, yeah, use the cardio. Like why wouldn't you do it?
Yep, because there's so many people, and I see there's a certain few people in training that want to reserve some of their cardio. I was like, why? We're here for 90 minutes. Like, empty out that gas tank in 90 minutes, and that's what's going to make the difference, because you can't take into account the nerves and the adrenaline dump that you might feel. I don't know if you went through that with the tournament and stuff, but I see it a lot, more specifically with the fighters, because it's almost easier to stay calm when you're not getting punched in the face, and I've told everyone, you got the conditioning for it, just push them. And that's when it was with Andres's tournament that I started really pushing, and here, put your hands on them, make them move, pull them, make them squat, stand them up, like just because they're not going to be able to handle that. And if we train like that on a constant basis, that's building your conditioning to do that, and you're breaking them as it is. And I think that's what sets you guys, because I say it all the time on my social media, all those places have jiu-jitsu at the end of their name.
Yeah.
We're one of the foolish people that have MMA at the end of our name, and we go into their world.
Right.
And we don't do half bad. We bring back medals every tournament.
Right.
And that was a conversation I had with Mac, because with one of Leo's, I'm coaching him, and then some guy that was sitting on the side says, he's an MMA fighter, isn't he? Because Leo's out there like this. I was like, yeah, well, watch. You know, so it's a sense of pride to see you guys as, you know, we focus on MMA training, but going to there, and that's what I was talking with Mac. I was like, should I be teaching them like more of a wrestling stance? Because you guys all have MMA stances when you're in there. He's like, no, let them. You know, we have to have faith in our training, faith in the conditioning, that what we teach works in grappling, what it works in MMA, it works in boxing, kickboxing, on the streets, it works everywhere. If you can turn this on the right spots. You know, obviously, we're training ground and pound, you're not gonna take someone down in a grappling tournament and start ground and pounding, but in training, you're looking for that, you know, and that's the mindset that we're trying to get you guys. Is just, if you think about it, not necessarily as, okay, I'm gonna punch them to death, but I'm gonna put pressure on them, or I'm gonna wear them out, I'm gonna take them to exhaustion and drown them. You know, and I think that's what really made me proud that day. At one point, I just took a step back, and there was like 3 of you on the mats, and you were all getting your hand raised at the same time, and I was like, I wouldn't trade you guys for anything. You know, we've had rough patches in the time from 2016. I started with Victory in 2011, and even before you got here, there's drama like anywhere is going to be. Right. You know, but to see you where we've started, and you being still that link to Victory and sticking it out through my inexperience to now just a little bit more experience, and you helped me get that experience, because when I see you in class, it's almost like the reminder is like, all right, he knows what I'm capable of. You know, he knows what Victory, what we had. You know, so there's no chance for me I'm gonna have a lazy day and just whatever, you know, because you're gonna know that right away.
I'll also say something to you.
Yeah, and you're gonna let me hear it too. You're like, that's it. You know, so I really appreciate that, and for you to step up as a leader and stuff to kind of lead them into, you know what, I have a job, I wake up at this time, but I'm not leaving until we're done. Right. And I'm still gonna stretch after we're done, even if it's my alarm's telling me it's time to go home.
I'll complain to you.
And you'll complain. It's past my bedtime, are we done? It's like, no, John, I don't like wrestling. Well, now we're wrestling more. You know, but through all that stuff, you know, it was really appreciative, and it was important. Like, I wanted to talk to you for this, like, it was one of the second ones we did, but then you ditched us to go on vacation or whatever.
No
and you
way.
had,
like, what am I supposed to say? No, I can't go. I have to do the podcast with my coach.
Yes, that's the commitment level I'm expecting from you.
I haven't been committed enough. God, you want my finger now?
Oh, give me a toe.
You can have that. You can have it, man.
You know, but no, I was excited to talk to you because I've known you for a long time, but I feel like I don't know you because we're always like throwing jabs at each other, but we very rarely just sit down and talk like this and stuff, you know. So I was excited, like I was on the other side of the map, but I was still watching you at that tournament and stuff, and just seeing you turn on that, because there's that training level and then there's that competition level. And I've seen so many people that have a great competition level that can't turn it up a little bit more that you need for that competition. And you did that. And that makes me excited, whether you're gonna do another tournament, whether we're gonna start talking about MMA fight. We can talk about that now, we can talk about that later.
Yeah.
Don't wanna...
I mean, end of the year, beginning of next year, that's the plan.
You know, but if you just keep doing what you're doing and keep that mindset, I'm big on process and routine as well. You know, you've heard the playlist that we listen to, and it's the same playlist since we were at Victory. You know, because and Naynay gives me crap too because I listen to the same music, but it's when I hear that music, I think of training. Right. And it gets me into that zone. Like we talked about, like what music do you want to listen to? We ended up not listening to music, I think, during your...
I don't train with music. Yeah. Man. Like if I go run, I just run.
Yeah. And Naynay will tell you I don't know if you were there that day, but she was worried about the music while we were doing strength and conditioning during sparring. And she stops what she's doing to start scrolling, and I just unplugged the speaker. I was like, now we're training in silence, and it's getting, the strength and conditioning is gonna go longer, you know, because I'm with you in the process. You know, if you're in that process long enough, it becomes routine, and your body does it. And you don't need that music anymore. You don't need things. Like, you want those things because it's part of you now. You know, because I go through that too. One thing doesn't go to plan and your routine gets shook a little bit. I tend to get a little bit anxious and a little bit crabby and stuff, and then I gotta remind myself, it's not the end of the world, because this one thing went off. Like, this 5 minutes of your day is not gonna ruin the rest of the 23 hours and 55 minutes that I have. You know, so I understand that 100% what you're going through and stuff, you know, but I'm with you. I wish more people had a process like you have, where you come in early, you stretch, and then you stretch before you leave. And I don't know what goes through your head when you're stretching, because I can't see what's going on in there, you know, but based on the performances that you put on, you get better every time you come in, you know, so something's processing in there where you're learning from your mistakes. And that's what I wish more people had, because I see so many people, we train, are we done? Yeah, we're done. And then they're out the door 5 minutes later. Yeah, you know, I was like, if you're not gonna stretch, don't stretch. I'm in no position to tell people to stretch with all the jacked up things that are wrong with me from not stretching. But the one thing that I do, whether it's during stretching or not, I process what happened. And even as a coach, I was like, all right, what worked today? What didn't work today? What do the guys need to be better at? How can I make them better in that? And just before I leave the mats, I have to process those things, because once I leave, who knows if I'm going to think about it again?
Right.
You know, and it's fresh. I just seen you guys spar, so right then and there, you guys asked me questions, and I always encourage questions, because your questions are going to lead me to where we need to go with what you guys need to be better with.
No, I agree. That's part of mindfulness, and I think mindfulness is important for our lives, period. Whether it's eating or breathing or fighting, you know. And I've noticed, like you said, I don't know. It happens. I wasn't expecting for it to happen here, because I feel like I'm learning a lot. This is a space where there's a lot for me to learn. Yeah. But I do notice, like, and even definitely lately, like, a lot of people that I spar with or train with, they're just like, oh, what should I do here? And I'm like, I don't know. What are you asking me for? Like, go ask Sean. But, you know, I try to answer to the best of my ability. But you're right. Like, you be around, you train, they see you, and then they start asking you questions. Yeah. And the best way to know if you know something is to be able to teach it to somebody else. So
the thing I think I've asked everybody, and we'll end it here, is how has training changed your life as a martial artist and as just a man?
As a martial artist and as a man, can they be combined?
Yeah.
Together?
Yeah. Deep down, I'm hoping it is combined, because I'm hoping that you take the lifestyle here and apply it out there. Because I know you mentioned, you know, you struggled with depression and stuff, you know, so mental health is a big thing. And that's why, for me, this isn't just physical training. It's mental training, it's emotional training. It's a healthy way to let emotions out. And then the interactions we have with people, whether it's positive or negative, we try to make most of them positive, you know, but we're not going to click with every single person we come across, you know. So what has training, and when I say training, like the actual physical training, but just the environment that we have, how has that affected your life?
It's been a central piece of my life. So like I said, the process is power. Like, the coming to training and having that routine, and training being a physical feat in itself. And perfect example would be like the purple belt, the grappling tournament, the in-house, and just training camps in general to prepare for them. Like, coming in, and despite how I feel on that day, because there are plenty of times where I'm like working all day and it's just been draining, you know, and I'm just like, I do not feel like this right now. And as soon as I come in, you're like, get a jump rope. I'm like, and I'm starting off the training night with that after I already feel terrible. But despite that, I do it. And then once I finish, I feel like I can do anything. And definitely with the belt tests. And what it has also done for me, it has not only affected me, but it has affected my loved ones. So like during the belt test, my entire family, my 4 siblings, I'm the oldest, so my 4 siblings and my mom were on house party watching. And then my friend, my cousin, little cousin, my roommate were here too. And like my roommate pulled me to the side afterwards. He was just like, man, because there was a point in time where like I had him like training, you know, just getting started off, you know, working out and stuff, a little light mitt pad work stuff, and just getting them into it. And he was just like, man, just watching you just like really inspired me, because he's 2 years older than me. So it's just like, just to know that you at your age deciding to do something that you don't have to do, you're not getting paid for it, you're actually paying to do it, and you're still coming here and you're working hard and you're training like that and you're progressing and you're succeeding. Like it affects other people. And we actually have a quote on the wall that says something along the lines of work as hard as you can, or always do your best, because you never know who's watching, or you never know who you're inspiring, right? So that's what it has done for me, In my family, there's not a lot of men. I'm one of I'm one of 3 older men. The other males in the family are teenagers and younger, and there's only a few of them. So I've always grew up around a lot of women, and within my family, I've taken on a leadership role as a patriarch. Like, I'm first generation college student. I'm the only one in a career path where I'm at. I grew up in a poor household. Grew up in a single parent household, with lots of troubles, both emotional and physical abuse. So for me, training as part of many other aspects of my life, as far as processes power, it is both giving me mental confidence that I can overcome those challenges, mainly the physical challenges and also the mental challenges, because mentally you have to push your body to overcome that pressure, that stress, that exhaustion, And it's also made me feel more confident as a leader, for people around me. Because I can look at this thing, like I can physically, it's always nice to be able to check a box, Because you're living your life for your entire life. Like, it never ends. Yeah. But to be able to take something in a moment, something like a belt, or something like a medal, or something like a competition, and be able to say, I did this exact thing, and check it and say, like, I did that. Yeah. And you can look back and say, I accomplished that. It gives you a moment, a pat on the back. It gives you the motivation. It gives you that power to keep pushing through new challenges, because you're like, man, like, that was hard, and I did it. This isn't that hard. I can do this, So that's what it's done for me as a man, as a martial artist, as a human.
I'm gonna check that in one of my boxes, because that's one of the goals that I have, because that's exactly what it did for me, So I'm just trying to give you guys what I had and what the sport did for me, and a little bit more, because I always felt like, as great as Victory was, and as great, I'm so happy I had that training. There were things that I would have wanted more of, and that's what I try to throw more of at you guys, And it's always, I've been enjoying talking to you guys on this level, because I like to think that I get to know you guys through your training, but it's the stuff out there that I don't see a lot of, unless people are super active on social media. But even that, people can lie on social media all the time, But just to hear that, and it's like, all right, and Naynay and Carla know my goals as a coach and what I'm trying to do with the gym and stuff. So to hear you say that just reaffirms, and it gives me those energies, like during the pandemic months where it was like, all right, we're not gonna make it through this, But to hear that, and to hear you guys when we were doing like the virtual stuff, and you're like, people would say this was the best, because it was just 40 minutes on Zoom. I was like, this was the best 40 minutes of my day. That was like, all right, let's go a little bit more now. Let's do another one. So hearing stuff like that keeps me going. And it's just, I'm very grateful. I'm very appreciative of you specifically for sticking out through all these years, stepping up as the leader. And I look forward to either the next tournament or first, both. We'll see which one happens first, but I'm very looking forward to that, especially the MMA fight. Been working hard for it, so you definitely deserve to go in there. So
thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. Are we gonna mess up the mics?
I don't know. Let's mess them up.